When I was around 20, I kept having dreams about a woman with long black hair named Aurora. They were different dreams, but for some reason, her distinct face and name always ended up in them. It got to the point where I would wake up frustrated and confused, trying to Google her name or find out how I was connected to her. After a few months she stopped showing up and I dismissed it, thinking my brain was just being a scumbag. Fast forward a few years later, Halloween 2009, I'm in the car with a friend stopped at a gas station. I'm about to pull out and merge onto a highway when I get a phone call from a random number, so I stop the car but no one answered. There was a person behind me who grew impatient, honked at me, and then swerved in front of me instead of waiting for 2 seconds for me to move. Second they get on the highway, a silver Civic loses control of their wheel and crashes into the car that swerved in front of me. I called the cops and waited at the gas station for them to come. Turns out the drivers of both cars died. It 100% would have been me if I hadn't got that phone call. Called it back a few hours later out of gratitude and curiosity, rang 3 times and went to voicemail. "Hi, you've reached Aurora, please leave your name and number." Never had goosebumps like that in my life. Called it again the next day, because I was that confused about the whole situation. Some woman answers, we get to talking, I tell her my entire story including the dreams I had. She tells me she doesn't know how I got her number and that she never called me as far as she remembers. Asked her if she has a Facebook to confirm if she is the same woman. Checked her Facebook. It's the exact same woman from my dreams. I'm a firefighter, and we got a call for an overdose around 3 a.m. to a rough part of our district in the middle of winter. Unfortunately, the patient was long gone, and her dealer or whatever found her like that when he dropped some stuff. This is a trashed mobile home. As we were packing up our stuff, I felt a chill run down my spine. I heard something down the hall that said, "Lights?" I asked my partner if he said anything as it was just him and I clean up. He said no. I walked to the far end of the trailer, where I heard it and shone my flashlight. I get a reflection out of the window. They have a small tool shed, and it has a flickering light. It piqued my interest, so my partner and I went out there. We hear crying and notice the door is padlocked. We cut it, and this little 6-year-old girl was in there. She said her mom puts her in there when she gets mad at her. She said she was scared when she heard the sirens and didn't know what to do. To this day, I have no idea what happened or where the voice came from, but I'll take the win on it. We had recently moved into a new house on Long Island in the town of Brentwood. It was a quiet town for its location. My dad worked as a taxi driver at the time, which meant he would usually end up coming home early in the morning. So it's Saturday, I'm watching cartoons, and my dad comes in and I run to say hello. My mom hears us from the bedroom and says, "Don't go in the pool, it's not ready yet." Me and my dad think, well, that's weird, it's 6 a.m., we weren't going to go in the pool, but just brush it off, and he goes on to tell me about his usual stories of the crazies he picked up throughout the night. We then realized it was Saturday and my mom was at work, and it was only me and him in the house. The voice sounded just like my mother. Fast forward a couple of weeks and my new neighbors come over to welcome us to town. They had 2 boys and 2 girls. So we get to playing some soccer. However, one of the girls is nowhere to be found. The curious little kid I was, I ran around the property and I find her playing in the woods, a dangerous area for little nooblets to be exploring. She asks me to come play tag, but I decline, wanting to get everyone in on the game. The reactions of everyone as I asked for them to join us was puzzling, along with the response from the mom, "We only have one daughter." Turns out a little girl had drowned in our pool 10 years ago. The mother soon passed from a heart attack. I was about 10 when this happened, but the memory of it is as fresh in my mind as when it happened, 45 years ago. I was allowed to set up my brother's tent in our back garden, and I was going to spend the night in it. I was pretty excited about it, as it would be the first time I had been camping, even if it was in my own garden. I watched a horror film before I went out to the tent. I believe it was Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter from the Hammer Studio. I walked out into my garden under a huge, bright full moon, giving plenty of light for me to see by. I got into the tent, then my sleeping bag, and waited to fall asleep. I was suddenly jolted awake by the sight of a shadow, human-shaped, passing around the tent. I thought that it might have been my older brother, trying to scare me, so I opened the tent flaps and tried to catch him out. There was no one there. I looked all around the tent, and nothing. I got back into my sleeping bag, after zipping the tent up tighter than a drum, and fell asleep. The next day, I said to my brother, "Nice try at scaring me last night, but it didn't work." He looked at me as if I'd gone mad, and said, "What are you talking about? I was in my room all night." I was home alone, laying down on my living room floor, and hardcore spacing out at the ceiling. I heard my mother scream on my front porch. I rushed out, but she wasn't there. I ran around the outside of my house. Not a single person in sight. It 10,000% sounded like my mom, and it curdled my bones because it was so raw and animalistic in its sound. I called her right away. Mom picks up the phone and I ask her if she is all right. She responds that she is and tells me to hold on for a minute while she pulls over into the parking lot of a business. She was driving and didn't want to talk on the phone at the same time. Seconds later, I hear a lot of noise and my mom screamed. An eternity stretches on before Mom is calm enough to say anything coherent. She goes on to tell me how the car in front of her and the one behind her, before she pulled over, the ones that continued on the same path of travel that she had been on, had been struck by a speeding semi that ran a red light at the next intersection. It was a terrible accident with extensive injuries. The semi clipped the rear of the front vehicle and front of the rear vehicle. My mom's car would have been hit dead center. So one night, I'm driving home from a friend's place. It's pretty late, like 2 or 3 in the morning. I live in the suburbs, and I'm driving pretty slow. I'm nearing the turn to enter my house, and from a distance, I see what looks to be someone outside. Pretty unusual this time of night as it's all young families and retirees around me. As I get closer, it's a kid, which is even stranger. Doesn't this kid have parents? He's standing directly under the street light with a raincoat on, and it wasn't raining. The hood was up over his head so that the shadow cast completely covers his face. I know my neighborhood pretty well, and while I don't know most by name, you know who has kids and who doesn't. This corner house doesn't have any kids. That kid's gaze was locked onto my truck, unwavering, turning his head and staring straight at me as I slowly passed, turning right towards my house. This kid only a few feet away. This kid did a full 180 with his body and watched me drive down my street. It was super unsettling. I couldn't even quite explain to you the feeling I got from it. I backed into my driveway, put my truck in park, thought about what I saw, and said I've got to check this out. I put the truck back into drive and went back down the street. It was maybe 20 seconds since I passed and the kid was gone. Vanished. The roads are straight enough in any given direction that a kid would have had to sprint to stand a chance of being out of sight in that short amount of time. So the demon child is gone. I went home, parked quickly, and didn't take my time getting inside and locking the door. To this day, never saw the kid again or anything that's given me a bad vibe like that. If you enjoyed your time here, please consider leaving a like on this video and subscribe to FearLore. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the comments section below. Thank you for watching.